In the history of the Nobel Prize, an amazing scene happened. There are two French Nobel Prize winners, and an American Nobel Prize winner refused to go on stage to accept the award, just because of them. It started with sharing a stage with a German scientist. In their opinion, the award for this German scientist almost tarnished the entire Nobel Prize. All over the world, and there were a lot of people protesting. But Sweden, Axland, president of the Royal Academy of Sciences, or the Nobel Prize, awarded to the German scientist, just because he greatly improved the level of agriculture. Benefit all mankind. That's right. But what Ekstrand didn't mention was, this scientist also killed countless people. He won the 1918 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Both the savior, Frischhaber, also a murderer. Why can China feed more than 1 billion people? No more famine. Some say it's because of reform and opening up. Some people say it's because Yuan Longping came up with hybrid rice. All of these claims make sense, but there is one more thing that should not be ignored. That's fertilizer. It has magical powers. You can grow crops out of thin air. Professor, School of Environment, University of Manitoba, Canada, Snill wrote. During President Nixon's visit to China, shortly after reopening the door to China's foreign trade, China has ordered 13 of the world's largest state-of-the-art urea cogeneration plant, the highest procurement of its kind. In 1979, China surpassed the United States to become the world's largest consumer of nitrogen fertilizers. 10 years later, it surpassed the Soviet Union to become the world's largest producer of nitrogen fertilizers. Late 1990s. 2/3 of the eggs in Chinese food all originated from the case of Haber's spell-binding synthesis. China's fertilizer production technology, it was imported from abroad. But foreigners, how did you first come up with fertilizer? A name appears before our eyes again. Harbaugh. What did this German scientist do? In the long river of human history, mentioned again and again. December 9, 1868. Haber was born in a Jewish village in Prussia, Germany, Thai merchant family. When Hubble was born. Can you eat? Still the majority of the world. The most concerned issue. It was a time without chemical fertilizers. If you only rely on farm manure, even in intensive farming, even if the human diet reduced to a minimum vegetarian diet, the earth can only support about 4 billion people. Overpopulation and lack of food formed an eternal contradiction. Countless wars in history. Strange things happened because of this. Countless people died as a result. Until enough people die, the food is finally enough, the war will subside. After that, when the population exceeds the carrying capacity of the land, something similar will happen again. Tragedy repeats itself. Never ends. That's a bird droppings will be considered a treasure. The era of being regarded as a national strategic resource, because bird droppings can be used as fertilizer, increase food production. And humans can't synthesize at all. Make something like this. There is no other way but to find humans in nature. 1838. Two Peruvian business people shipped some bird droppings to the UK. And it's only captured the attention of the major powers of the world. These bird droppings come from the Kinca Islands near Peru. Rich in nitrogen. After British farmers use these bird droppings as fertilizer, and we see a direct spike in crop yields. A Scottish farmer reports that production has increased by 30%. Many others say, just use these bird droppings. You can even reproduce it. Trees can even bloom twice a year. American planters also found that just use these bird droppings. Just average cotton and tobacco fields. It restores production. An American expert estimates that its fertility is ordinary fat saving, 35x results. And this bird droppings became a global hit. The Peruvian government began extensive mining. There's 10 stories of bird droppings on the archipelago. During peak mining periods, there are often hundreds of ships waiting by the island to load bird droppings. The entire country of Peru, and I made a fortune selling bird droppings. In 1850, if calculated by area, this cluster of roads full of guano, the most expensive real estate on earth. By 1859, revenue from guano fertilizer, it already accounts for 3/4 of Peru's national budget. Xian sighed. Never heard of it in such a peculiar way. Covers nearly all of the country's expenses. For Peru, bird droppings are a revenue generator. For the powerful, bird droppings are a strategic resource. More fertilizer means more food. More people, larger army. For guano, the major powers have disregarded their dignity and ended frequently. In 1850, US President Fillmore. It is pointed out in the National Day text. Peruvian guano has become a major interest in American agriculture. Extremely desirable commodity. The government has a responsibility to use all legal means. Make sure it is imported at a reasonable price. 1854 20,000 flower boat people. Send a petition to the United States Congress. Request to buy Guano Island in Peru. And claim the actual value of the island to the American people. It will far exceed Cuba and the entire Antilles Islands. In 1856, the United States Congress even passed an outrageous guano archipelago. The bill allows American citizens to claiming to have any ownerless guano island in the world and make it a U.S. territory. The US Big Money Act claims 94 islands, reefs and sandbars. Until today, the Guano Islands Act is still in effect in the United States. The 8 Pacific Islands claimed under the act. Diameter still lost to US territory. For bird droppings. In 1863, the Spanish sent their navy directly to take the inventory of the islands. It was later discovered. Digestion in the South Atacama Desert can be processed into fertilizer. As a result, digestion quickly became a hit. Chile, Peru, and Bolivia. In order to compete for this desert where tough guys eat and fight, even war. And Chile came out on top, exclusive of this area. By 1900, the amount of fertilizer produced in Chile already account for 2/3 of global usage. And Haber's country, Germany, lacked food for its colonies. It has also become the largest buyer of Chilean digestive food. In 1900, Germany imported and sold more than 350,000 tons, more than 900,000 tons in 1912. That's twice as much as the US. 3 times the volume of French imports. Due to the increase in food production, Germany's population has also increased from over 50 per million, increased to more than 60 per million. The expanding population allowed Germany to compete with France, Britain's strength to fight the World War. And the root of it all? It's the humble guano. But the problem soon came. This natural resource will one day be exhausted. Like the 10-story bird droppings on the Kinka Islands. It's almost ready to be harvested. If humans one day, you can't get enough fertilizer from nature, what happens then? British scientist, elements of his discoverer William Crookes, thought of this. He issued a dire warning in 1898. He said right now, England and all civilized nations are in mortal danger. The danger of not having enough food, the danger of famine, the danger of mass mortality. In Crookes' words, if no action is taken soon, large population, especially the populations of the most advanced countries in the world, will soon start to starve to death. This pessimistic language spread from Bristol to England. It went on to be published in newspapers around the world. People are worried. And Crookes, the only hope lies in chemists. He wants some chemist can find a way to synthesize large amounts of fertilizer, so that before we fall into actual scarcity, postpone the day of famine into the distant future. But who was this chemist? Will he really show up? Crookes doesn't know either. He just believes chemists had to do it. When we were young, may have thought, you can solve one yourself, problems not solved by predecessors. Because some problems seem that simple. Take Goldbach's conjecture. This conjecture has only one sentence. It seems that only 3 numbers are involved. Some addition operation. Any junior high school student can understand what this conjecture means. But it's really hard to prove him. Like controllable nuclear fusion, we all know there's an infinite supply of knives in the sea. We also know that knives and piercings can undergo nuclear fusion, unleash tremendous energy. We just need to let this reaction now. Controlled persistent occurrence. You can have an inexhaustible supply of energy, but we can't. It's very difficult in engineering. The beautiful theory and the cruel reality. There's always a gap. He's like a chasm. Insurmountable. Synthetic fertilizers give you fertilizer, Scientists have long understood the miraculous fertilizers found in nature. They're active ingredients. In fact, it is formed after dissolving in water and contains negative ions of phosphorus and potassium. They're easily absorbed by crops. Therefore, it can effectively promote crop growth. Take the egg element for example. It is an important component of chlorophyll in plants. Photosynthetic capacity of leaves is directly proportional to its egg levels. If you fertilize the crop, it makes more eggs. Increase production. It's that simple. Where are the eggs? It's in the air. 80% of the air is nitrogen. It can be said to be inexhaustible, eternal. When scientists got to this point, and they thought they were going to synthesize it, there are billions of lives on Earth will be saved. But reality once again pushed them against the wall. But it's too hard to use. He's too stable. To put nitrogen into ammonia for fertilizer production, nitrogen must be broken, a chemical bond between two nitrogen atoms. But this bond, it happens in nature. One of the most stable chemical bonds. Breaking it requires a huge amount of energy. How big is it? Humans need to heat the temperature to about 1000 degrees. But here's the thing. Nitrogen and hydrogen generate ammonia. It's an exothermic reaction in itself. If you raise the temperature too high, it will severely inhibit the production of ammonia. The next tendon is blocked at both ends. And you're going to end up with a really bad yield. This question, even the top chemists of the day had a hard time conquering. As early as 1900, German chemist Ostwald tried to use nitrogen in relatives and dust. Ostwald is not small. He's a great master of German science. He developed Schi's law at the age of 35. At the age of 41, he understood the nature of catalysts. He also won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in his later years. But it's him. I also failed on the road of synthetic AN. He thought he had successfully synthesized. But he got AN. In fact, it is caused by contaminants in the device. So he withdrew his patent application and gave up studying the problem. 1904 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Ramch, who discovered noble gas elements, we tried to synthesize ammonia. But he also failed to find a large scale, a cheap way to synthesize ammonia. This question remains unresolved. It's the holy grail of chemistry. After the failures of countless predecessors, an obscure German scholar. Start your own climb. That's Fritz Harper. Haber's father. It was a Jewish merchant in German Prussia. In the dye and pharmaceutical business, possessing some knowledge of chemistry. So Harba was also interested in chemistry from an early age. Generated a strong interest. According to family and classmates, Harba was in lower middle school. I started conducting chemistry experiments in my own home. When Harba graduated from high school, his father hoped that he would study business, to inherit the family business in the future. But Harba doesn't want to. He insisted on going to college to study chemistry. Continue to engage in academic research. As a result, once you enter the scientific research, it is as deep as many years of research. Until the age of 39. Still haven't made any major theoretical achievements. He has been 3 times trying to join Ostwald's lab. One to be in Khufu, famous to work under Ostwald. But they were all rejected. It is in this context. Hubble started researching. Ostwald failed to synthesize successfully, in the eyes of the past. This is actually quite overkill. Hubble first tried high-temperature Cypress Z special equipment, and tried to quickly cool the ammonia that has formed. Avoid the formation process of ammonia being destroyed by high temperature. However, the results of these methods are not ideal. Hubble realized, you have to lower the temperature of the reaction. Hubble jumps out of the framework of his predecessors. He decided to introduce and make great use of a new parameter. Pressure nitrogen and hydrogen. The process of synthesizing ammonia. It's a scaling down reaction. Pressure can tilt the balance deeper. Press pressure to lower the temperature. In fact, predecessors have also tried pressurization, but they found that the yield after pressurization, still not ideal. So I gave up. But Hubble realized, that's because they're not under enough pressure. If you can keep adding pressure, there is hope. The problem is that the pressure required for this is also too high. It's way beyond the conventional equipment of the industry. And just by pressurizing, the production rate is still not ideal. But Hubble believes, as long as he can find the right catalyst, as long as he can build a high-pressure device, can actually synthesize and remove cancer. In 1907, at an academic conference held by Hanover, Haber presents his ideas and calculations. As a result, he was publicly questioned and humiliated. The perpetrator was Germany's top chemist, Nernst. According to Nernst, Hubble can't make that many cases. He called Haber's data grossly inaccurate. And piquantly ironic too. I suggest Professor Haber now adopt a way to ensure truly accurate numerical values. Nernst's questioning is fatal. His scientific status is much higher than that of Haber. Nernst and Haber are about the same age, but better than Haber in everything. Haber was never able to enter the Olympic Games lab. And Nernst, but Ostwald's prodigy. Listen to the successor. Hubble had never had any major theory before. Achievement. Nernst proposed the famous third law of thermodynamics, considered a good contender for the Nobel Prize. In actual industrial production, Hubble couldn't make any impact either, something significant. And Nernst has invented the precursor to the idiot lamp, Nernst lamp, and with this invention, earned a huge income of millions of marks. So when Nernst questioned Hubble, it's easy to believe that it's true to measure. False scientific conclusions are like counterfeit money. Worthless. Haber was devastated by this. He was humiliated. They feel that their academic fertility has suffered. His wife wrote in her mind that Haber had relapsed. Stomach digestion. Neurodermal problems. It all made him weak. Even BASF, the German chemical company that funded Haber. I'm not optimistic about Haber's original idea. They prefer Haber to try another policing craft. Haber later lamented BASF's funding for itself. It's out of consideration for me personally, and not because of confidence in the project itself. But Haber didn't give up. He was suffering serious injuries and doubts. Keep sticking to his line. He wants to prove to the world that he is right. "100 atmospheres. There was only a high-pressure axe at 7 atmospheres yesterday, exploded in front of us." This is a BASF executive. After learning of the pressure required for the Hubble scheme, the amazement. "You know, this pressure is terrifying. He is equivalent to under the sea pressure at a depth of about 1 kilometer. But Hubble was unafraid. He and his assistant, Rosinio, was mechanically created on the body. They jointly designed a set of extremely durable high-pressure experimental equipment. They shrouded the back wall of the quartz tube and used specially designed pressure valves and accessories. They had this time. It can operate at 100 to 200 atmospheres. Experiment with this pressure. Enough to overwhelm the vast majority of modern military submarines. It was a height that early chemists were unwilling to reach. Hubble confirmed his conjecture. Under such high pressure, EN's production has seen a considerable increase. Thereafter, Hubble started to improve every aspect of the equipment again. For example, he thought of the synthesis process itself as an exothermic reaction. He can take the heat released by this part, take advantage of, used to heat the nitrogen that needs to be heated in front. He can also recycle the gas. Let those nitrogen and hydrogen that have not had time to react. The gas continues to make cancer during the next cycle. These measures, it has greatly improved the entire production process. The economics made it affordable and viable. Harpo needs one more thing. That was the catalyst. And nobody in the world knew which substance is involved in the synthesis of ammonia has sufficient catalytic efficiency. Haber just tries one by one. He tried many things. Finally, when it comes to rare metal geese, ender production has finally exploded. Hubble was so excited, and he stormed out of the lab. Knock on the doors on both sides of the corridor. Shout to colleagues to come down. You must see for yourselves the appearance left by Hitaean. Decades later, a witness will never forget that moment. I can still remember. There's about a milliliter of it left over. It was incredible. A milliliter sounds very small, but we need to know. At that time, the experimental equipment of Habo was also very small. Its size is only equivalent to a few desk lamps. If you scale up this equipment to the factory level, its output will be rather objective. In fact, Harvard's productivity at that time, it has far exceeded all human history. Record high enough to achieve industrial production. When BASF finally, when examining Hubble's experimental results, Hubble's machine, it has been able to operate without failure for 5 consecutive hours. A small beaker of N is produced every hour or two. Hubble has gone through the most crucial step. All that's left is refinement and industrialization. Another member of BASF, famous chemist VADS, also joined in. His role is also very important. Synthetic and needs relatives. The FAD team improved the production of relatives. And they've come up with something much cheaper. Better catalyst. We built a factory. Level of high voltage equipment. The doctor was able to co-sign with Harbaugh. The core method of the entire fertilizer production, named Dr. Harbaugh Law. After this technology came out, industrial and academic festivals were quickly detonated. September 1913. BASF Sabao plant. After going into operation, tons of phone bills in an hour. And, by recovering the heat released during ammonia synthesis. Reactions such as almost no additional features. Once activated, it exclaims self-sufficiency. This makes fertilizer extremely inexpensive to produce. Fertilizer from Opal factory, you can sell as much as you produce. Profits are extremely objective. And the theoretical basis for all this comes from Haber. He made a fortune from his research. BASF annually. They all called him a large fixed reward. In addition, for every kilogram of fertilizer produced by the company, Haber will also have a certain share. In academia, Haber is also a famous magpie seal. March 18, 1910. Haber made his results public. Addressed a group of scientists. The title is Nitrogen for Human Use. According to historians, Haber's speech shocked the academic world like a bomb. Within a few days, requests for a speech from Haber. An endless stream, so that merit should not be sought. There are also many companies looking for Haber to cooperate with. Consultation. All previous doubts about Harbaugh, all swept away. He became the most dazzling confidence in the academic community. What was Harbaugh's status at that time? He taught directly from an ordinary university. Became Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany physics. The first director of the Institute of Chemistry and Geochemistry. He is also regarded as the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, one of the hottest candidates. And he did win the Nobel Prize. Before Hubble, humans are still struggling for bird droppings and digestion and hit the head with blood. But after Hubble, cheap fertilizers already use nitrogen from the air. It keeps coming out. All other factors being equal. Only the rational application of chemical fertilizers can enable farmers to increase crop yields by 40 to 60%. Getting food has never been easier. Hubble greatly increases the carrying capacity of the land, saved hundreds of millions of lives around the world. Humans today, no longer worrying about arable land. Can it still feed the current population? Worried about falling fertility rates. Humans don't give birth to themselves. We have passed the age of famine. There is a sentence to describe Haber's contribution. Most appropriate. He took bread out of the air. If the story continues as it should, Haber should be uncontroversial, remembered as a great scientist. People will praise him. His fellow scientists will also be proud of him. But that didn't happen. When Haber won the Nobel Prize, he provoked countless protests. Even the other winners publicly refused to accept the prize. Started with him. And it all started with a war. July 1914, the First World War broke out. Hubble has to consider, what can he do for his country? Haber to his native Germany. Have deep feelings. His hometown is in Prussia, Germany. Prussians. Probably the most patriotic group in Germany. The unification of Germany. It was driven by the Prussians. As a person who loves science, Haber also often benefited from Germany's strong industrial sector, academic atmosphere. Germany was the birthplace of the Second Industrial Revolution. Before 1920. It is the German who has won the most Nobel Prizes. Here are top universities, top companies and top talent. It was literally the center of science in the world at the time. In the scientific literature published in 1910, about 40% are in German. The chemical industry at Haber. Germany is almost in a monopoly position. It is precisely because the motherland has provided such excellent, Hubble talent in scientific research, achieved fame on the road. Haber is still a Jew. And Germany wasn't too bad for Jews at that time. Compared to other European countries, not even bad. Many Jews believe that Germany's attitude towards Jews, better than France. Historian Amos Aaron wrote, compared to Germany, most other countries in Europe, prejudice against Jews is as pervasive as discrimination, even more serious. In Germany, Although Jews cannot hold some important positions, but they could still do business or science, professional positions such as law and medicine, and gain a respectable identity. Like in the scientific community, up to 20% of German scientists, all Jewish. Many of them have achieved significant results, and it has gained wide social recognition. Haber is one of the most typical. He is the director of the prestigious research institute in Germany. German government also often will consult his opinion as a science champion. The official emphasis on Haber, he even practiced court etiquette, because he had a premonition that he might be called to the palace. See King William II. Germany gave Haber everything he dreamed of. Therefore, he deeply loved his country. A close friend of Haber lamented, Hubble has completed the work of the great researcher, the transformation of the great German. Haber's son also believes, father's patriotic zeal, even in an era when chauvinism was tolerated. It's pretty rare. When World War I broke out, Haber followed his motherland without hesitation into the flames of war. He claimed that the war was imposed on Germany. It's an uphill struggle for the survival of the country. As a scientist, Hubble starts thinking positively, what a terrifying weapon to make to help Germany win. Hubble also has an underlying motive. Like countless Jewish soldiers going to war, Haber also wants to serve in the war, to prove that even though he was Jewish, but he was also a true patriot, a true German. Hubble's idea, deeply worrying one of his friends. This is Albert Einstein. Einstein knew Haber a long time ago. Both Jews, both German scientists. The two had known each other as early as 1911, and soon developed a deep friendship. When Einstein moved to Berlin for work, it was the apartment that Haber bought for him. Later, Einstein was also recognized at Haber's institute, including half of Einstein's salary, all paid for by Haber's backers. Haber will write Dear Einstein in his heart. Einstein wrote back, also always use Dear Haber. How good is the relationship between the two? They even get involved in each other's family affairs. When Einstein had a conflict with his wife, Haber will come to mediate. Haber's son studied math, and Einstein was a great tutor. The deepest relationship between the two took place in 1914, the legendary executive of that year, Einstein, who fascinated many women in his life. Cheating in marriage. He lost his marriage as a result. And all my own children. When Einstein howled like a child, when crying, Haber was always by his side, accompanied him through that difficult time. A Yingsi later lamented that there was no Haber. I can't take it anymore. The relationship between the two is so close. But Einstein and Haber were a little different. He's not as passionate about politics and his country as Haber. Einstein always took a detachment. Lang Jun's gaze is on politics. He is also a German Jew, but he doesn't have a strong identification with Germany. On the contrary, it is believed that the frenzy and madness behind militarism. Einstein also did not think that Germany was interested in Jews. Is a good home. He will always discuss Germany as an option. When Einstein, seeing Hubble's addiction to war, he felt that Hubble had gone down a wrong path. He wrote that unfortunately, you see photos of Hubble everywhere. It hurts every time I think about it. I have to admit, a man so distinguished in other respects has succumbed to personal vanity. Not even the most tasteful kind. At the inn, when this great war of imperialist hegemony broke out, Einstein once told Harbaugh, talked about the madness of war. But he found, my friend, signed a petition to volunteer to fight. Einstein couldn't stop Harbaugh after all, to create the most terrifying killing weapon. Two talented scientists who were once intimately close go further and further away. Haber served as a consultant to the German government, came to the battlefield of World War I. Here he can top several stones by himself. Because he's so smart. Hubble first realized the importance of explosives. Cannons were the most powerful weapon of their time. And how many times can you fire? It depends on how many shells you have. Explosives. One of the core ingredients of the kiln is the disappearance of intelligence. And Harpo previously synthesized ammonia can be converted into disappearance. In the early days of the war, Harper came up with this idea. Later, there was also Harpo's dredging in the army. German military. Only then did he choose to work with BASF. An agreement was reached for the disappearance of production. As a result, just 8 months after reaching an agreement, the Aalborg plant that used to produce fertilizer started at a rate of 150 tons per day. Production of explosive raw materials under Hubble's woe spin. Germany later established a factory that uses Habo to produce explosives. Once, a fertilizer factory that runs to feed the people. Now they're using the same technology to kill people. According to historians' estimates, if it weren't for Dr. Harbaugh's law, the disappearance required to produce explosives, World War I may end a year or two early. In World War I, that brutal cannon roar of positional warfare, it's very much Harbaugh's work. After conjuring bread out of the air, he started conjuring shells out of the air again. But Haber found that the Germans were still unable to win. He concluded that humans had become accustomed to artillery fire. The gunfire didn't do much damage to morale. Therefore, he decided to develop another one that was more powerful than cannonballs, more destructive weapons. The new weapon will be able to destroy the enemy's morale. Because they are brand new. The enemy has never experienced something that scares them. According to Harbaugh's vision, this weapon will quietly crawl on the ground. Slow penetration pit howl. He will be powerful enough to destroy the enemy's body and mind, and cannot be intercepted. Harbaugh wants poison gas. For a long time, poison gas is considered the most anti-human, one of the most inhumane weapons. Because he is too harmful. So uncontrollable. Traditional weapons, such as firearms, artillery, it's controllable. You can choose who to target and who to hit. And the damage from these weapons is short-lived. After the shell exploded, there was no damage. But poison gas is completely different. As a gas, it blows in the wind. It's extremely contagious. It can easily spread to places that are not battlefields at all. Large numbers of deep-sea civilians. It also contaminates the soil. Water sources are extremely damaging to the environment. Extremely susceptible to long-term effects. Like in the remnants of the Japanese army in Dunhua County, the poison gas bag, China. Many places that have made Dunhua have been grassy for many years, not born. The poison gas used by Italy and Ethiopia. It also causes long-term pollution in the local area. Many civilians are exposed to toxic water sources, and after food, dead animals and plants are also affected. The ecological environment has been seriously damaged. It is because of these bad properties of poison gas. Therefore, the use of poison gas has long been banned internationally. In 1899, countries around the world, including Germany, signed for the second academic year in The Hague. Mutual agreement not to use asphyxiating or toxic gases. Haber knows this. But he still decided to use poison gas. He believes in this unexpected secret weapon can help his country win. April 22, 1915. Allied soldiers stationed in Ypres, Belgium, saw a strange sight. They have no enemies in front of them. No gunfire. Just a big cloud of yellow-green smoke. Silence came to them. A pungent smell filled the air. Soldiers soon have sore throats, dry cough and tears. Immediately after, they felt their chests tightened by iron bones. They grabbed their throats like crazy, breathing desperately in my chest, but feel suffocated. Standing on the fence can't stop this gas. Soldiers want to live. The only way is to abandon the position and run back, hoping that this gas won't catch up with you. This is Haber's masterpiece. He personally chose chlorine as a weapon. This gas is extremely irritating. It can lead to pulmonary edema, suffocate. It's denser than air, so it sticks to the ground. It's hard to avoid. To release chlorine gas into enemy positions, Hubble designed a gas array of unprecedented scale. There are more than 5,500 poison tubes here. The poison gas released continues. It's about 6.4 kilometers wide. This is the first time in human history, the first large-scale use of poison gas in warfare. Haber himself opened Pandora's box. This time he enrolled 7,000 enemy soldiers. Hundreds more were poisoned directly. Many enemy troops. I did give up the truth in panic. After the news broke, it caused a stir in the German headquarters. Wilhelm II was overjoyed upon hearing this. I hugged my subordinates excitedly 3 times. Harbaugh himself also got a promotion for gas warfare. He was awarded the Iron Stone Medal and was invited to meet Dehuang himself. Harba's institute was reorganized. Once seen as a scientific institution that represents human progress, and now we're designing poison gas weapons. Hubble himself has also been in the East and West for a long time, directing German poison gas operations. For poison gas, Hubble had a naive fantasy. He thought that as long as the poison gas was released, the demoralized enemy army will break up and run. And behind the poison gas, thousands of German troops wearing gas masks will move forward. Sweeping through collapsed enemy lines requires little firing. Without paying huge casualties, they will reach the end of victory. The war will end quickly. Haber is in turn convincing his subordinates, although they are making poison gas, but in the end, they will save countless lives. Harba also believes that the Germans don't have to worry about the enemy retaliating with poison gas, because the chemists of the Entente, whether in preparation for the gas war or R&D talent, far inferior to Germany. But reality finally hit Haber hard in the face. After Hubble broke the consensus and used poison gas on a large scale, the British and French soon took out the gas as well. The facts show that the British and French are not dumber than Haber. They're just a little bit more limited. After Haber opened the Pandora break-in, now both parties really have no scruples. Both sides began to continuously use more toxic gases. Finally, throughout World War I, due to the use of chemical weapons, the number of people with lethal IQ is as high as 1.29 million. Someone lost an eye. Someone lost more than half of their lung. People lost their lives. Caused countless human disabilities. Haber is also because of what he did, and was condemned by countless people. Even his friends and family resented him. The future father of polymer chemistry, Master Tao Dingji, his relationship with Haber was good enough to always water Hubble's head. But because Haber launched a gas war, the two got into a heated argument. Haber's wife Clara: "I can't stand my husband's behavior. He's a doctor of chemistry. He can't accept that his husband will be chemical, used to cause massive harm to humans. He has repeatedly expressed his opposition to Haber, but to no avail." May 1, 1915. At this day's banquet, Clara tried again to persuade Harbaugh give up the gas debt. But Harbaugh repeatedly blamed his wife, attack him from behind. Grief is greater than death. In disappointment with her husband, after a long and bad marriage, Clara ended her life with a pistol. A few days after his wife committed suicide, Hubble boarded the train to the front again. To help the motherland print war, Hubble lost almost everything. He lost his wife. Also lost his reputation as a scientist. But Germany didn't win either. Instead, he lost a large part of his territory after his defeat in World War I and carry a heavy compensation. The end of the war devastated Haber. He went on for months, in a state of neurasthenic exhaustion. In a letter to a friend, Haber lamented, "I feel like I'm sliding down a snowy slope now." The only thing Hubble can comfort himself with is, he was at least in World War I have proven themselves a true patriot. He loves his country, but the country doesn't love him. Behind the inn, anti-tourism sentiment is on the rise in Germany, and it came to a head when Hitler came to power. Haber, who was Jewish, also became the target of attack. The German newspapers scolded him. The establishment of the Kaiser Wilhelm Society, it was the prelude to the influx of Jews into the physical sciences. Kaiser Wilhelm Physics, Haber, director of the Institute of Chemistry and Telephone Science. It's the nephew of Jewish speculator Koper. The work of the institute, it's almost entirely Jewish. But Hubble and Koper are not actually related at all. Fully 3/4 of the research staff, not Jewish at all. This is the upper class, extreme nationalist language on the line. Hubble has been caught in a crazy environment. The deadliest blow came from Hitler's government. They decided to exterminate the Jews from their constitution. This includes Haber's institute. Since Haber had helped the German army in combat, also received the Iron Cross, so he doesn't have to leave for now. However, as the director, he have to follow Nazi orders. Fire the Jewish staff first. Hubble looked at the firing list, looking at the ones he personally recruited, when men and women perform well at work. Haber finally couldn't stand it anymore. He made a little resistance to the Nazis. He said he couldn't follow their orders. He is resigning. In the German upper echelons, only one person values Haber. And that was Planck, a fellow scientist. Planck starts running around to keep Haber. But the reply he got. But it will only make Haber more chill. The Nazi culture minister told Planck, I have nothing to say to the Jewish old Haber. Hitler also told Planck, Jews are not to be trusted. Because they are all communist parties. Jewish blood is original sin. Jews and the Communist Party are as close as thorns. And the only solution is total invasion. Planck also tried to argue a few words. But Hitler kept talking faster and faster. It's getting louder. Even slap your knees with your hands. Furious. Planck had to leave the room. Harba's future is also decided. He can't stay in Germany anymore. In the final months of Hubble's life, he got back in touch with Einstein. Then Einstein has become the god of science admired by everyone around the world. His theory of relativity reshaped humanity's understanding of the universe. His image appeared on newspaper headlines and magazine covers. A head of unkempt white hair became a totem of wisdom. Compared to Haber, Einstein had already recognized Germany and gave up his German citizenship. After Hitler came to power, Einstein even announced, never return to Berlin. But few would criticize Einstein for being unpatriotic, criticized him for betraying his country in joining the United States. Instead, praise him for abandoning the dark and turning to the side of civilization. On the side of the anti-fascist and anti-Nazi. Einstein was extremely politically intelligent. He was never limited to his own country. I find the perfect place to do science every time. In comparison, I have always loved Germany, Harbaugh in Germany. It's a bit of a clown. After learning of Harbaugh's abstinence, Einstein half mercy said to him half sarcastically, I can imagine your inner struggle. It's like being forced to give up a theory of lifelong dedication. And I'm not like you. Because I've never been interested in those things. Have a little faith. At this point, Haber could only admit to Einstein, I've never been in so much pain. And increasingly feel unbearable. Less than 6 months after leaving Germany, Hubble died. He died in Switzerland. Died in a foreign land. For Haber's life, I always feel sorry. The fertilizer technology he invented saved hundreds of millions of lives. Until today, we are still using the Harvard model method for synthesizing phone charges. The world has enough to eat. More or less all of his credit. And the other side, Harbaugh is always reminiscent of the smoke that symbolizes death. He has the unpleasant title of father of chemical warfare. I was in the movies every time. See that kind of evil scientist in the game. I always think of Harbaugh. He has proven that if scientists decide to do evil, if science is used for evil, how much harm will it cause? In fact, before Hubble first used poison gas, British and French scientists are also studying poison gas. Like British, several gases have been considered and conducted experiments. The French were ahead of Germany. The ruins of rust acetic acid were used on the battlefield of World War I. It's also a toxic gas. Also chemical weapons. But the French use very little. Not too harmful. So start making hats for the brave. Still stuck on Haber's head. He is called, was the first to use poison gas on a large scale. Haber is very unconvinced by this. He persuaded his men. An important reason to make poison gas with him is the French have already used poison gas. We can imagine if Harper can bear with it for a while. Maybe another country, before he used poison gas on a large scale. If he uses it in the name of counterattack, he will not be scolded. But history has no ifs. Harper's superb chemical skills and his strong feelings for his country. It's decided that he will always be the one to use it first. Hubble's synthetic explosives for a similar reason. Due to the lack of colonies in Germany, overseas trade has also been blocked by New Vietnam. Therefore, there's a lack of natural disappearance. We said earlier that Harbaugh conjures shells out of the air. The war lasted a year or two. In fact, it means that if there is no Harbaugh to solve the shortage of raw materials for explosives in China, Germany may have lost long ago. We are not Germans. Of course, it can be said that Germany lost earlier, lest so many people die on the back to sides. But for Hubble, it was hard for him to accept that his country had failed. When Hubble synthesized explosives, nor was he thinking that Germany would eventually fail. He wanted a future for his country. These behaviors all reflect Haber's sincerity to his country. Haber comes from a special group of Jews. He realized the particularity of his identity and hoped that by serving the country, to prove his patriotism, although he was eventually expelled from Nazi Germany, make his efforts look like a clown. But I don't think the problem is with Harbaugh. It was the Nazis. If Harbaugh hadn't been in Nazi Germany, such a special country, if he were in another country, it certainly won't end up here. So I don't want to be patriotic about Harbaugh either. Irony. It must be wrong to break through the bottom line and engage in poison gas. But Haber's love of country is right in itself. Even after defeat in World War I, Haberto is still running for his country. He knows the sky-high war reparations. Germany was overwhelmed. So he hoped to extract gold from seawater to save his country. Seawater contains trace amounts of gold. And the ocean itself is incredibly big. Hubble tried many methods. You can go across oceans and do experiments in the ocean. But in the end, he failed. This is also what this scientific giant can do for his country. The last thing I did. Haber died at the age of 65. Before death, he still doesn't regret what he did for Germany. For my controversial life. Haber explained his science in one sentence. Attitude towards humanity in peacetime. During the war for the motherland. This is the main content of this video. Except for Hubble, we have also produced the most. Another important scientist, Einstein's video. On April 11th. In the upcoming Einstein video. We won't go into details. Einstein. Scientific contributions that are already well known. It's about his political choices. The Jew who was born in Germany. How clever was it to avoid it? Every cataclysm in history. Let yourself be able to engage in science safely. We will also talk about Einstein. It's a bizarre emotional thing. Under the brightest brain. How much loafing and flower heart are hidden.